Just gotta hit this go live. Make sure I'm not the audio's not.
was a good piece you dropped today.
Oh, about the font?
Yeah, you can bring that up.
Huh? Because he's maintained that same position for the very start. He carries him in this guy.
Pretty
Initially
dress.
was serving at the pleasure of the mayor. So I'm
Right,
just,
right.
yeah, his stance hasn't really changed.
Yeah, I
so
see what you're saying.
Oops.
if you do like an about face, and all of a sudden you see something.
Right, explain the change of thinking.
I mean, the rules are the rules, you would think, right?
Yeah.
Pretty cut and dry.
It's the test alarm they use, yes. It'll be loud and piercing, and you can't turn it off.
Good evening to SUNY Schenectady Community College. Welcome to the audience here. Welcome to the audience that's online watching the debate tonight streamed on the Gazette website or also on YouTube on the channel, and that information is available on the Gazette social media, the Gazette website. I'm Miles Reed. I'm the editor at the Daily Gazette, and I will be the moderator tonight. I also want to thank and welcome our panel of journalists over on the far side. Thank you to all of them for being here tonight. Also, I want to welcome all the candidates here, all the candidates for the City Council at this point. Just going to give a brief overview on the format for tonight. It's a little bit different than we've done in the past. So tonight it's going to be a double header. The first session will be for the 4 City Council seats that are available. We have 8 candidates that are running. 6 are here tonight. 1 was not able to make it, and another person is not actively running. But welcome to all of the candidates for being here tonight. Also want to give a big thanks to SUNY Schenectady for co-sponsoring this event with us again. They're great partners and so helpful, and they helped us set everything up, lining up a lot of things for us, and really helping with all the audio, visual, etc. A special big shout out to Troy, who is a huge help to us. And also want to recognize and thank the collaborative at Proctor's, Open Stage Media. Zebulon Schmidt is here, and he's recording it. Thank you, Zeb. And finally, I just want to go into a little bit in terms of the rules tonight. Slightly different than we've done in the past, but mostly the same that we've done for about 20 years of these debates. So to start with, each of the candidates will have an opportunity to do an opening statement. They will all have 90 seconds, and we'll go through the candidates in order of how we drew the arrangement ahead of time. After that, we'll quickly launch into the questions with the panel of journalists. All of them have a lot of good questions they've worked out, and they've worked together talking about some of the issues. They want to make sure they cover a lot, share information with the voters. They will be able to ask questions as they go. All the candidates will be able to respond to every question. They have 60 seconds to respond. Some of the journalists may have follow-up questions if they feel that they need more information, and they will direct them to specific candidates if they have those, and then the candidates will be able to respond. There's no formal rebuttal this time. If any of the candidates feel after the end of the question that they have more to say, they want to respond to one of the other candidates, they can appeal to me, and then we'll decide at that point. We'll make it very clear whether we want to go forward or jump to the next question. And then at the end of the debate, the last couple of minutes, we're going to have a lightning round of questions. All the journalists will ask these questions. These are designed to elicit more brief responses They've got a number of questions lined up, planned. I think they'll be interesting. It's be a little bit more interesting. And then finally, we'll close it out with closing statements. And the candidates also have drawn those, the order that they're going to do it ahead of time, so we'll get going with that. So finally, we're just going to jump right into these introductions and these openings with the candidates. And starting off is candidate Carmel Patrick.
Good evening. I'm Carmel Patrick. I'm proud of the work that I've done during my first term on City Council. I've collaborated with Mayor McCarthy and my colleagues to spur historic investments in neighborhood parks and at the municipal golf course. I've concentrated on revitalizing our neighborhoods, supporting public safety, and helping find solutions for the problems our residents face every day. I've helped expand the property tax base through $6.6 million in sales of city-owned properties, resulting in decreased neighborhood blight. And I co-sponsored the It Starts With Me anti-litter campaign and Schenectady Social Club's 3 new senior meal programs. For 40 years, I've worked in the Capital Region as an educator and a nonprofit fundraising manager. Thanks to these professional roles, I've built strong working relationships with many leaders in the public and private sectors. It's always been important to me to not just reside in a place, but to be actively involved as a volunteer in helping my community grow and flourish. I've been president of the Library Board of Trustees and the Schenectady Rotary Club. Currently, I serve on those boards as well as the Schenectady City School District's Community Schools Advisory Board. I'm especially proud to chair Schenectady Shares, a volunteer initiative that collects food and personal hygiene products to restock county food pantries. All of these experiences have given me a unique perspective in my first term as a Schenectady City Councilwoman and will continue to inform my decisions in a second term. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is candidate Stephanie Hayes.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Hayes. I was born and raised here in the city of Schenectady. I'm a retiree from New York Tel AT&T and worked there 25 years and retired at age 41. I currently am an office manager for our plumbing company. I'm a proud Hibernian and a lifetime member of St. Luke's Catholic Church, where again I work with all different things in the food pantry. The reason I'm running for city council is this is my hometown. I want to make it great. I want things to be better for people, especially some of the elderly. There's a lot of things that were done well with the city council, but other things that were not. So my goal is to make everything be well and nothing be bad. I'm hoping that when we get to know each other, my door is open. I'm always available to talk to you. I want my city to be very best that it was when I was growing up here in the city. My parents were born here. Everybody, my family is here. I love it. I've lived other places in the world, and I've come right back to Schenectady. This is my hometown. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to make a difference. And I can't do that without all of your help, so I'm hoping everyone here will help us and make the best city council that we can be and for the city of Schenectady. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Carl Williams.
Good evening. My name is Councilman Carl Williams. I am a son of Schenectady and 13-year military veteran. It is only with the support of a loving wife, Michaela, and 2 beautiful daughters, Zariah and Malia, that I'm able to continue to serve. In my campaign originally in 2021, I campaigned on bringing more inclusion and transparency to City Council. One of the items, or 2 of the items I was able to achieve in my 2 years of office was hosting a town hall and skill building exercise. The town hall was able to identify some housing concerns locally, and the skill building was able to identify some political language to allow people to communicate better across their divides. I've attended numerous community events throughout the city to broaden my awareness of each neighborhood's needs, and I respect the voice of everyone in our community, Democrat or Republican, because we're all Schenectadians. Serving on City Council requires us to read between the lines and make sound judgment calls. I've been able to support criminal justice reform, budgeting and allocating funds equitably, and providing information and not empty promises to the community. Voter turnout remains to be an abysmal metric, which reflects the need to foster deeper connections with our community, some that I have, which is investing in our youth to make sure we establish authentic connections with them before asking for petition signatures. It's safe to say that I've disagreed with everyone on our city council at one point or another, and as we continue to seek to address issues regarding cannabis zoning, speeding, and housing issues. I'm confident that my independent and objectivity will reflect someone to the community that is measured and prepared to do this work.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next up is Doreen DeToro.
Good evening. My name is Doreen DeToro. 2 years ago, you put your trust in me to represent you on the City Council. Now I am seeking re-election and asking you to put your trust in me once again. I don't take your trust for granted, and I have kept my promises to you. In the past 2 years, I have accomplished a great deal to continue the Renaissance movement in our great city. I've developed and passed legislation and programming on attacking our litter problem, addressed abandoned and blighted properties in our neighborhoods, selling city-owned properties and putting those back on the tax rolls, reducing the burden on all of our tax payers. Push for new and innovative approaches and enforcing quality of life issues such as loud noises, speeding, and traffic violations. I've created neighborhood senior centers which offer weekday meals, services, and socialization programs. I've worked with the Schenectady Police Department to address food insecurities in our city, and co-created the Schenectady Shares, a program to restock over 20 food pantries in our county. I'm committed to working to reduce taxes, making government more efficient, providing funding for meaningful youth activities and summer employment. I have visited thousands of residents in our neighborhood and in our city, and will maintain a transparent line of communication with you to build a stronger community for all our residents. Partner with me, and I will continue to be your voice on Schenectady City Council.
Thank you. Next up is Joe Mancini.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Joe Mancini, and I am running as a first-time candidate for the Schenectady City Council. Through the leadership of Mayor Gary McCarthy, our city is experiencing a resurgence and revitalization, and I'm eager to work with the mayor and the city council to help advance the work we still have to do. As a lifelong resident of the city of Schenectady, I've worked my way up to, I bring a background of more than 30 years in public service. In 1989, I joined the Schenectady County Department of Probation. I worked my way up through the ranks and became the Director of Probation. All during that time was service to the community. I then became Associate Commissioner to the state of New York, where I implemented and oversaw the reentry aftercare system for the state. My career has prioritized serving the public. It's what I do, it is my mission, and affecting positive change with a focus on public safety, enhancing public safety, and at the same time ensuring the well-being of the youth and youth at risk. I was proud to lead several multi-agency efforts to reduce juvenile violent crime, reinvest funds to family and community-based programming, and also at the same time have a significant reduction in taxes for residents. Currently, I serve as Senior Program Advisor for the Seed Center in Schenectady. And during my tenure in public service, I've came to believe in and experience the power of collaboration. I know that only by working together can we effectively address the complex issues that lie ahead for us. So I ask for your support, not just as a candidate, but as a partner in continuing to build the city we're all proud to live in.
And last but not least is Jacob Dobbs.
Good evening, Schenectady. I am Jacob Dobbs. I graduated from St. John's University, and after graduating from St. John's University, I went to Europe as an infantry officer. And then I learned the word unanimity of purpose. I had to work with soldiers from Germany, France, Canada, and Great Britain. After coming home, I got a job with the New York State Department of Corrections, and I served as an offender rehabilitator coordinator. And I also served as an officer here as a combat engineer commander. I served in Fort Drum as chief of range operations, and during Desert Shield, I wrote the plan to bring the troops back home. I'm looking forward to serving as a city councilman here in Schenectady. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. All right, we're going to jump into the questions now, and we're going to start on the far left, CBS 6 reporter Emma Quinn.
Over the summer, aging infrastructure gave out and a vehicle ended up nearly upside down in a sinkhole. How would you ensure infrastructure is continued to be repaired and maintained?
And this question goes to Mr. Mancini, and then we work our way down, starting with him.
So the question was how to maintain the infrastructure?
Yes.
So I think, and that's been a lot of issues, a lot of concerns when we met with residents with the streets and the potholes. And looking at how we can fund that and invest in our infrastructure. It's very important to have an infrastructure that promotes businesses and transportation and good roads. So I think we need to look obviously at a tax base and see what kind of funding opportunities are out there to build our infrastructure without having to increase taxes.
Next question, or the same question to Mr. Williams.
Thank you. So what I'd like to pride ourselves on is the work of our City Hall employees, specifically our engineering department, who is chaired, or their chief engineer is Chris Wallen, does an exceptional job. Far too often do they get credit for the work that they do. However, funding is rarely the reason for projects not getting done. It's unfortunately staffing. So I'd be confident in relying on his wisdom and expertise to be able to identify proper approaches to make sure that the materials that are used best complement the seasonal elements that we deal with on a routine basis. As we'll, I imagine, later talk about speeding, it is making sure that we put in place the proper measures that not only support ourselves on a daily or immediate basis to make sure that these types of sinkholes don't happen again, but we're also looking to promote longevity. So again, collaborating with others, because I myself do not pride myself on having all the answers, but I do support the work that they do in that engineering department, and am confident that they'd be able to help us resolve and find a long-term solution.
Thank you very much. Next up, Ms. DeToro, 60 seconds.
Thank you. So here in the city, like all cities in New York State and around the country, we do have an aging infrastructure. So we need to find ways to fix the infrastructure, fix the pipes, everything underground that we can do without raising our taxes to do it. I'd like to say that Mr. Wallen in the engineering department does do a great job. The entire city goes out. Mayor McCarthy happened to be at the corner of Eastern Avenue and McCullen Street for almost 2 days straight, reporting daily on the progress of it. That happened to be an exceptional condition where there was an excessive amount of rain, and it was a storm drain way down within our infrastructure. So again, we just want to look at ways to maintain our aging infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Patrick, 60 seconds.
Well, again, our engineering department is really great. Mr. Wallen does a wonderful job. The mayor was on site for the whole time. Again, we do have a very aging infrastructure, like most cities in the country. I think it's important that the partnerships that we have with other agencies, such as National Grid, such as other utility companies, which the mayor and our staff have fostered so well, is really important in dealing with crisis situations like what happened with the sinkhole.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Dobbs, 60 seconds.
Infrastructure maintenance should occur on a cyclic basis so that we can take care of the entire city. Yes, our infrastructure is old, but we do have the capabilities to do it, and we do need to hire more staff in that area so that we can maintain our city.
Thanks, Mr. Dobbs. And finally, Ms. Hayes.
On the infrastructure here in the city, I agree that we have done some good works, but it is an aging infrastructure. I think we need to foster some more partnership with neighborhood associations so that if they see something, they can report it and it can be checked right away. That's an easy thing to do for somebody to just drive by and say, yep, this is what it is. We need to get this one. It's a priority so we don't get a city sinkhole again like that. And if we can do some cammering of the old pipes and stuff and see how we can fix those, there's a great company that can just reline it and not have to dig up a whole pipe and replace a pipe. It might be something to look into, see if we can get some grants to do some of that look, and that's what we would do to try and save some of the infrastructure here in the city as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Next question comes from Times Union reporter Paul Nelson.
Good evening to all the candidates. So nowadays there seems to be a lot of labeling of candidates, often in a pejorative way. So I'm wondering if you could, based on your political ideology, just tell me how you would describe yourself.
And this one goes first to Mr. Williams, and then we work our way down.
Definitely entering the city council and local government realm is an adjustment. One of the quotes that I was trying to identify to best capture myself, which I think is very in line with your question, is a quote from John F. Kennedy, and it's that leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. I pride myself as an individual that recognizes that I do not know everything, but I'm always willing to learn and take an active step moving forward. I've always prided myself in my abilities to be outspoken, and that is something I do not apologize for. However, I recognize that the experience is definitely an area that is how I'm going to develop and best meet the needs of this community. Definitely being one of 7 individuals is a challenge, to say the least, just because there's so much different, we come from different backgrounds. And I think as we respect what each other contribute, I think that is when we all start to value each other appropriately, and that is when we as a community can begin to walk in one lockstep. So definitely, it's an adjustment moving forward. I'm confident that this upcoming year will be a nice turning of the tide, and I'm always here to learn.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next up, Ms. DeToro, 60
Yes.
seconds.
Thank you. I'd like to explain myself as a woman of integrity. I was elected to this position by the residents of the city of Schenectady to act in their behalf and act fair and be equitable to everyone in the city. Again, we all come, the 7 of us, we're a legislative body. We all come from different backgrounds. We all have different ideas, different ideologies, but our one goal is to maintain the integrity for the residents of the city of Schenectady, for each and every resident. So I will do my best, and I have continuously worked to do my best for the residents of the city of Schenectady. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Patrick, 60 seconds.
I've always considered myself to be a progressive Democrat. I've been a lifelong Democrat, and I also have to say I grew up outside Boston. I grew up in a working-class family. My father was a union guy. We were sort of immersed in the culture of the Kennedys. My father's VFW was a popular stopping point for Tip O'Neill and all the Kennedys as they stumped. So I guess today I've been considered a Kennedy Democrat. I've been called that by many people in this city. I consider my views to be moderate. I consider myself to be fiscally conservative within that. But I also know that as I've spent the last 4 years on council, it's been important to me to be able to research every issue and make my decisions in terms of my votes basically on what my opinions have formed through my research. So sometimes I too have disagreed with my fellow
Thank you.
council members.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dobbs, 60 seconds.
I view myself as a Christian first, as an American second, and as someone who loves my city. That's how I view myself. I serve my country, and I want to serve my city of Schenectady.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. Ms. Hayes?
I'm a very strong Republican out of a Democratic family. The rest of my family are Dems. I'm a Republican, proud to be a Republican. I'm very active in St. Luke's Catholic Church, very much involved in a lot of the things there and with the Ancient Order of Hibernians, doing a lot of customer service. My goal is to be able to say my door is open anytime, no matter what time of day or night it is. So no complaint, no nothing is ever too small for me to hear and to look at and to address. We all have the same goals here, is to make the city the best that it can be and bring it back to its former glory. So I think that's the way we all need to work together as a team and do that.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Mancini, 60 seconds.
So I had mentioned I've led several multi-agency change efforts, and through my experience both at the local and state level, I found when we come together and we have a focus on what's in the best interest of the communities, things can happen. But often we get caught in our point of view. And I think it's real important when we come to the table is recognize it's our point of view. It's not true. It's our point of view. And our question is to ourselves is, am I willing to give that up in order to serve the people that we're here to serve? And it takes a lot of courage to do that and sometimes some coaching. But when we can focus on here's where we want to go, here's how we serve the public, not ourselves, not our party, not any agenda. It's what's in the best interest of the people that we serve. And when we can come together like that and be open to that, we can find common ground, and that's when I think some miracles can happen in the work that we do.
Thanks, Mr. Mancini. Next up, the question is my colleague at the Gazette, our featured news columnist, Andrew Waite.
Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate your time. The council made a kind of own goal when it failed to send a home rule legislation request to state reps, and that had very real impact of not being able to install red light cameras as anticipated. Just wondering who is to blame for that kind of own goal, and how do you prevent those sort of procedural paperwork blunders from happening going forward?
First up is Doreen DeToro.
Thank you. I wouldn't place blame at this point on anyone. The home rule was put in by Councilman Palomini, and it was had a certain path it had to take, and it ended up in the clerk's office and never went any further. So I'm not personally going to place blame on anyone, but again, we're waiting on that home rule that could help us in a lot of different areas here in the city with speeding and crime and other things that we're experiencing on some level. So again, I'm not here to place blame. I wasn't involved in it. But I do know that we really all do the best that we can with what we have.
Thank you very much. Next up, Ms. Patrick, 60 seconds.
Yes, I don't have much to add to what Ms. DeToro said. I, too, am not here to place blame. We try to work together as a team. It was unfortunate that that didn't go through the way that we needed it to go through at the time, but we will continue to work on the traffic issues that we have and the speeding issues that we have. I'm sure that hopefully that won't happen again in the future because it was remedied as soon as we found out what happened. And I don't have anything else to add to that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dobbs, 60 seconds.
Placing blame is not the solution. It will be fixed, and I'm just glad to have the opportunity when I get elected to be part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. Ms. Hayes, 60 seconds.
There is blame, but there is no blame. It's a dual sword, I think. If it went to the clerk's office, somebody should have followed up with the clerk and made sure that it was okay. You have to do that in your job. If you're tasked to do something, your manager or your boss will follow up on it and make sure that you did it. I will, follow up on something. If it's put in and it's my bill, I will follow up on it to make sure that it gets to go where it needs to go. Whether it gets done or not, we can get the funding, but we've done the effort to try it. We've followed through on everything. You have to take responsibility for it. And, if you don't take responsibility, then you don't have anything, you don't have integrity. And without integrity, you cannot be a city council person or work for the people because then they can't trust you. And that's a hard thing to learn and to do. But we need to follow through on it at all times.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Next up, Mr. Mancini, 60 seconds.
So I guess I would look at, what agreements were made and who had the accountability, where the breakdown was. And not to get into blame, that's not useful, but everyone has their areas of accountability. And so I would look at where that breakdown was and bring that to the person's attention if there was a certain breakdown in a certain person's area of accountability. Because as she said, is we do have to maintain a sense of integrity. And if there was a breakdown in communication or what things were supposed to happen, how things were supposed to happen, we need to identify it and be accountable as a board. Because that is a way for us to maintain integrity. Make an agreement, you keep it. If you can't keep it, then you renegotiate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. And finally, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. So coming from the military, we absolutely measure success based on lives lost. And whenever I deal with a problem, that is the first question I ask, whether it's on the council or at my workplace, did anyone die? And if no one had, then we can absolutely stop, pause, and look at the system in which this issue was allowed to exist in. Taking this example, yes, the paperwork might have arrived back to that individual's said office, but was that individual then tasked to perform anything with said paperwork? And I think that is very much the question. As leaders, it is our responsibility to model said behavior to any individual watching, I think most importantly our youth, to help them understand how do you fix and crisis manage. In this effort, it is evaluating, all right, was there any system in place delegating what to do once that paperwork was received? If the answer then is no, it is our responsibility to do something with it, to not assume that the matter will be corrected, but to put in place an appropriate solution so that it does not happen again. And I think if we then, as administrators, choose not to respond appropriately, I think that is more or less when blame is more appropriate to be delegated out.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. The next question comes from a new guest, new face and voice on the panel, Doug Gowdy, WGY.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for humoring me. You have all mentioned speeding and speed limits. Let's just get into it. The city seems to be, let's stay with 30, but maybe do what they call traffic calming. If you are in the 25 camp, explain why, and if you're in the 30 camp, explain how traffic calming is going to work.
First up, Ms. Patrick, 60 seconds.
Okay, thank you very much. We continue to work with staff and law enforcement to look at a variety of solutions to address the speeding and traffic issues that are problems in every neighborhood in this city. I actually do support the 25 mile per hour speed limit. Research has shown that even lowering the speed limit by 5 miles reduces the risk of pedestrian death. We also feel that if we have a speed limit of 25, then people will go 30. So that would be helpful. I'm not in favor of lowering the speed limit to 25 miles per hour throughout the entire city, however. We have to look at solutions in what the staff call 3 E's, enforcement, engineering, and education. The most difficult piece of this to solve is the behavior of the drivers. How do we get them to slow down? How do we get them to stop at red lights and to stop at stop signs, which doesn't seem to be happening? We're looking at the measures like reducing the speed limit, but also narrowing streets, adding digital signage that shows the speeds that folks are driving at.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. Next up, Mr. Dobbs, 60 seconds.
I would follow what New York City has done, and they've implemented cameras at certain areas that basically monitor the speed, and if you go over the speed, then you get a ticket. And that is more effective because people are mindful of their pocket. And I also think that right on red is another major problem because people are turning right on red when they don't have a green light. And that's also causing accidents too. So I would implement cameras to basically monitor the speed and go over the speed limit, get a ticket.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. Ms. Hayes, 60 seconds.
I think the lowering of the speed limit on certain streets in residential neighborhoods is a very good idea. I'm not sure about narrowing the streets. Some of the streets are very narrow now as it is, and you can't be plowed if you park on them. So you have to be mindful of that too. There's a lot of different ways. Again, the red light cameras would help tremendously. Issue a ticket. You have to look at each neighborhood and take each neighborhood as a different thing and into itself and go that way. And it may work in Mount Pleasant, but it may not work in the Stockade, or it may work in the Stockade and not in Central State Street. So you have to take each one individually, tailored to that system what it is. But I would not change the main streets anything lower than 30 miles an hour at this point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mancini.
So I guess I would like to look at the data that we have, focus on some of our higher risk areas, maybe schools, parks, and look at the possibility of doing 25 miles per hour in those areas if it's not lowered already, and do a public service campaign on speeding, the dangers of speeding. Take a look at the cameras. We want to do that. What we can do engineering, that is a possibility, is looking at redesigning streets where it's a problem. We had residents be really happy about their street is paved, but now they're dealing with speeding because the street is so level. And so I think we just need to do some rolling enforcement and look at the cameras and look at our data and how are we progressing. I know we have the speed bumps that are movable. I'd like to see how those have worked. And is it just a temporary solution? And then ticketing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams, 60 seconds.
Yes, thank you. I would respectfully push back in stating that it's an either or with 25 or 30 miles per hour. I think honestly you need to look at the data as Mr. Mancini identified and understand how is this going to affect the natural flow of traffic. I am in no way a subject matter expert. What we're being told is you cannot just put in place a measure to have an intended outcome. Unfortunately, there are laws and guidelines that our engineering department has to follow by, and that unfortunately is where I think some of the community's angst is to how we are not able to put in place some easy outcomes such as putting in place more stop signs. To Mr. Dobbs' point of the cameras, that is specifically reserved for school zones, and what we've identified is within the city of Buffalo, after they implemented it, they understood that they had unintended consequences with disproportionately ticketing communities of color. So part of what our response is, or mine specifically, is once you receive this information, digesting it and making sure that you can objectively respond in a manner that is understandable, but also most appropriate, because truly speeding does need to be addressed.
Thank you. Mr. Toro, 60 seconds.
Thank you. So I think the first method, obviously, is to remind speeders and potential speeders not to go over the speed limit. It's basic. I'd like to thank Mayor McCarthy, Chris Wallen, John Coluccio, who have been working, and of course Chief Clifford, but they've been working nonstop to try to get the speeding under control here in our city. One specific area that they've been working on, there's all kinds of data that we can collect, and they've been putting that together to identify problem areas here in our city. We are employing different methods, trying to get speeding under control with the removable speed bumps up in the Hamilton Hill area, signage, and enforcement. So I'm again, without enforcement, I'm not in favor of changing the speed limit at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Toro.
Thank you.
Next question is back to Emma Quinn.
Recently, 2 local assembly members, Phil Steck and Angelo Santa Barbara, allocated $800,000 in funding for the Schenectady Fire Department for apparatus. Is there anything else our first responders are in need of? How would you go about finding that funding and those resources?
First up is Mr. Dobbs, 60 seconds.
Resources like that, we can go from the federal government through state agencies, and I would basically go that way to find resources for our fire department.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. Ms. Hayes, 60 seconds.
I would look into what we could do to make more policemen available, more body cameras if needed for them, if, maybe more police dogs and more community servicing. I'd like to see policemen being able to walk the beat and know the neighborhood and the people in the neighborhood in order to do that. If the fire department needed a new apparatus or new stuff, I would definitely want to find the money to do that. We do have some aging apparatus here in the city because we are old. So, we need to be as succinct as we can be in order to keep everything moving and going the way it needs to go.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Mr. Mancini, 60 seconds.
So I'm a big fan of grants and looking for grants and opportunities for funding. And first responders are always a priority nationally and even and locally and state. So I would look at grant opportunities. Do we have the state-of-the-art equipment? Do we have what we need? Do we have the equipment we need to do our job? Kind of look at where we are now, and then what are the best practices? What are the best equipment? What do we currently have? And then search for opportunities, funding opportunities, to equip our first responders with the equipment they need and the resources they need. Again, that's something consistently we need to look for, make sure that you're going to rely on taxpayers to a certain extent, but always look at opportunities because there's always new initiatives coming out from the federal and state government, and those are opportunities we can seize in the form of writing for grants and securing that funding.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Mr. Williams, 60 seconds.
Yes, thank you. To specifically respond to your question, yes, there was recently a request for upgraded breathing apparatuses from Chief Marino. I hope I can say that, President Porterfield. Okay. I was still learning how to be a council member. However, there are different funding pools that we're able to use on our city council. This one is going to be pushed through our capital expenditures. However, in response to funding streams, I say it all the time, and I've recently had a talk with Assistant Chief Whipple. Our fire department and our police department and our engineering department, they do an exceptional job at finding money. It is something that is worth note, and we need to recognize them more for doing that. However, with respect to any life-saving material, that is not a question. Our first responders are the reason why our city is exceptional. Our crime is down. Our response to emergencies is exceptional, and that is only when they feel like they can trust their resources and equipment. Whenever that is in doubt, that is when we are seriously not positioned.
Thank you,
for
Mr.
success.
Williams. Ms. DeToro, 60 seconds.
Thank you. So we have one of the finest fire departments here in the city. Every fireman, every employee of the fire department is a paramedic. That's something we treat as very valuable. So I know that when someone comes to an emergency call, they're going to be treated by a paramedic. As far as the money that was given to us by Angelo and Mr. Steck, Mr. Steck even made a comment that day after presenting the $800,000 that there's more money to be had. So if you knew of something up in the Woodlawn area, to reach out to him. With the replacement of this fire truck, we'll actually have a reserve of 3 trucks instead of having older equipment. So we do have some of the best equipment out there. And again, as far as grant funding that the police and the fire department go out to get, we sit at council meetings and they come in and just ask us to agree with the grants that they're getting. It's nonstop.
Thank you,
Yes,
Ms.
thank you.
DeToro. And finally, Ms. Patrick, 60 seconds.
Almost every time we have a council meeting, either Chief Clifford or Chief Marino is there to tell us about a grant that they have been awarded, and we just need to accept the grant. As a former fundraiser in nonprofit, it's always at the top of my mind, these grants, and it's been amazing to me over the last 4 years, the amount of money that comes into us because of the hard work that they do in both the police department and the fire department and in our engineering department to bring in those grants. So it's really great. And as my colleagues have already said, I think it's a priority for all of us that the equipment and technology that we have for both our firefighters and our police department is top-notch. We know that both departments are really just one of the best in the state, and we continue to support them as much as we can.
Thank you very much. Next question is back to Paul Nelson, the Times-Union.
Public safety and crime are always hotly debated issues in Schenectady. What do you think drives the perception that Schenectady has a crime problem?
We start with Ms. Hayes, 60 seconds.
The perception is that we see it happening, we hear it happening around the city. We hear the call for more police because the things are going around the city and stuff like that. There is crime. I know several policemen who have said that as much as they get somebody and they arrest them with the bail reform, they're right back out doing it again. That needs to, I think, be addressed, but that's a state level thing. At this time, we have to be mindful. It is all there. The crime is there. It's not as much as other counties, I don't think. We're down in crime a little bit, but there's a lot that still needs to be addressed, and in order to do that, I think we have to have a lot of one-on-one sessions with neighborhoods, with different groups. We need to find ways to make everybody involved so that if there is a crime, somebody
Thank you
is
very
not
much.
afraid to report it.
Mr. Mancini, 60 seconds.
So obviously, crime is a big concern for everyone, and we got to look, what's in the media and what's in reality, and look at our data. Our crime rate has come down. Every urban center has seen an uptick with COVID, but we have reached record lows. Schenectady is a recipient of the GIVE grant. I was actually part of that when I was a director of probation. And there are multifaceted ways to address crime, and part of the GIVE initiative now, they're investing money in employment opportunities for young adults. Because that age group between 18 and 24 have a higher rates of crime and recidivism. So they're also putting into what are other ways we can approach crime rather than just arrest our way out of the problem. So community-wise, we're doing a really good job. I'm really impressed with Chief Clifford, the mayor, on where we are in Schenectady. I recently did write a grant, and I looked at Troy and Albany as well, and we've done really, really well as far as crime and not seeing the violent crime they saw in Troy and Albany. And so I think we need to continue that path and put that data out there.
Thank you very much. Mr. Williams?
Thank you. I think part of it is due to the nature that we are an urban community. I think whenever you hear of crime statistics based on some of our neighboring cities, it's important to make sure that we're interpreting that information accurately and making sure that we proportionally view it based on our population size. There's very much an article that was recently in the newspaper identifying how our police department recently launched an online database. It is important for us as viewers and recipients of that information to make sure that we shout just as loud for that, because that is a huge improvement and milestone taken in response to our police reforming policy. Similar to what Mr. Mancini was mentioning, community policing works. It truly does. And that requires the vested interest of each of us as residents to make sure that we are not responding, but also preventing and identifying how these issues are happening. Why are these crimes taking place? To make sure that we can put in place the appropriate solutions that address the origin of the situation instead of just responding thereafter.
Thank you very much. Ms. DeToro, 60 seconds.
Thank you. So overall, the crime rate in our city is down since COVID by about 33%. We do have, as Council Member Williams offered, the police just launched an online database on their website. So each individual can go into the website and look to see what type of crimes are in their area and what's happening. But we all are also very fortunate to have an accredited police department, one whose performance exceeds expectations of quality performance in a professional manner and formalizes policies in place. On the council, I will continue to make sure we adequately always fund our police and fire departments, our officers, their training, technology, and equipment. I was also a huge proponent of engagement officers in our school. I think it's important that the officers start with youth and build a trust with the youth, and I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Patrick, 60 seconds.
Crime is down 33% since 2022. I think that it's in large part, of course, because of the excellence of our police department, which is, for the first time in its history, accredited. That means that they went through an incredibly challenging and comprehensive process with the New York State Department of Criminal Justice Services, and they had to get monitored on over 100 areas of what they do, and it also adds to their transparency with our public. I've consistently advocated for funding for staffing, technology, training, and equipment to keep both our officers and our community safe. We need to keep all of our current efforts in place, such as the community engagement officers in the school, our team of investigators, our federal task force members, in order to fight violence. That's what's working in Schenectady. And I, like my colleagues, really encourage people to check out the website, City of Schenectady website, the police department part of that, to find a factual dashboard that's updated daily to tell you what the statistics are like about crime in our city.
Thank you very much. Finally, Mr. Dobbs, 60 seconds.
Yes, the view of crime is basically shaped by the media and the criminals. So we have to basically work on, and they did say that crime is down in Schenectady, and I'm glad to hear that. And basically, the media has to do a better job of letting it out, saying that crime is down in Schenectady.
Thank you very much. Next question, Mr. Gowdy. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Wade. I'm sorry. I stick right ahead. My colleague, Andrew Wade.
In the conference room at the paper tomorrow.
As our council members know better than I do, you're currently looking at zoning issues to do with dispensaries. Just wondering if you could each talk about your position on that issue.
Back to Mr. Mancini with the first response.
I would, Yeah, I think that's something we really would need to take a look at. I see where the dispensary is now in Upper Union. I don't know if that was the best location. What comes to mind for me is, a place like similar to Crosstown Plaza. It's kind of like a strip mall, but it's out of the way and it's close to 890 where folks come in from other areas. They don't have to drive to the city. They can go right there. So, and you're now out in display if you're at the dispensary as a customer. So I guess I would look at areas such as that are close to 890, where you don't have to drive to the city, go into a business district. That would be comfortable for the customers as well as the residents that in a business district like Upper Union, folks standing in line. I don't know if that's the best place. So I would look at better locations that were accessible from other towns as well, where you didn't have to drive through the city.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Mr. Williams?
I imagine each of you all in viewing of this recall maybe vividly some others more than others. The opportunity to opt in or opt out has long passed. So the discussion of whether this is going to exist in our city is a moot point. It's here now. I think as we address where these dispensaries will be located, it's important to make sure that we're taking into consideration the input from our neighborhood associations and our residents. Looking at the, case study of the current company that exists in Union Street, I've heard both sides of the story. I've heard that the long lines and the additional cars and traffic is clogging up those areas. But however, I'm also hearing that having a now approved marijuana dispensary is providing people some health relief. So I think it's important to recognize that this law, the cannabis law of 2021, was put in place to address some of the inequities that were burdened by communities of color. And I think we also need to understand as a community how we're going to best support these efforts moving forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Toro?
Thank you. Each of the members of the City Council had an opportunity to sit down with our Law Department and Development Department to express to them maybe some of our concerns and where we would like to see future dispensaries located in our city. We were presented a map the other day with an overlay, and I think most of the council, meeting with those departments, we all kind of agree that it needs to be like in districts where there's not a lot of residential areas, Upper State Street, down in the harbor, different areas. I'm not sure the cannabis dispensary on Union Street, the gentleman who runs it has been abiding by any rule and any regulation that the city has asked him to do. He's just faring very well up there. But moving forward, we really need to be considerate of where we put these dispensaries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Patrick.
Yes, we did have the overlay presented to us through a lot of hard work by our legal department and our development staff the other day. I did have the chance to sit down, like my colleagues, with our legal department before we had the meeting the other night. The overlay definitely was focused on our commercial districts. That's what I support. And, we'll be moving forward with making our decisions about that in upcoming weeks as we have a chance to learn more from our staff.
Thank you. Mr. Dobbs?
Yes, dispensaries are one thing, but the vape shops are selling the same product and they're not held to the same standard. So I really think that we do have to look at dealing with both issues because the vape shops are not paying the taxes and not going through the process as the dispensary. So we have to look at both issues.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. And finally, Ms. Hayes?
It's a law, it's accepted, it's here in our community, we have to make it work. I'm not sure putting it in out-of-the-way areas is the right thing. They do pay taxes if they own the building, they're gonna pay taxes. I personally don't think I would ever use it or go to one of those. I don't want it near a school, near a park, near a business that has children going in and out of it. It needs to be in a location that is more centralized, maybe the harbor area, without actually looking and seeing where it is. I just don't think it should be relegated to like Lower Broadway where nobody else is down there, We just have to take it as it comes and hopefully make the best decisions given all the advice that we're given to it.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. So did you have a rebuttal? Did somebody have a rebuttal? Go ahead, Mr.
Quick
Williams.
rebuttal. Just to Mr. Dobbs' point, the overlays are going to encompass cannabis and similar use products. And I think to Mrs. Hayes' point, there is the Office of Cannabis Management, which oversees and establishes guidelines. I know oftentimes they're not as clear cut, but there are federal regulations that identify where these businesses can exist. Are they perfect? No.
Thank you very much. Any others?
Just, I mean, that was what I was going to say as well, that it's not just the cannabis, it is also the smoke and vape shops as well that will be part of the overlay.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. So we're going to move now. We're making pretty good time. We're going to move into the lightning round. We're hoping to get a couple of questions from each of the panelists. We're going to start with Mr. Gowdy, and to keep this simple, and a reminder to the candidates, these are meant to be quick answers, one-word answers, one sentence, nothing longer. We're going to start with Mr. Gowdy, and to keep it simple, we're going to start on the left with Mr. Mancini, and we're going to go right through. I'm not going to necessarily call people's names, and we're going to give it a shot. Mr. Gowdy.
Nothing has fired up my audience this year more than gas stoves. Should gas stoves be banned in Schenectady?
Should what?
Gas stoves.
No.
The state's banning gas stoves in new construction.
Oh, stoves.
Should gas stoves be banned in Schenectady? No.
No.
I would say no.
Absolutely not. I prefer to bake with gas versus electric.
I wish I had a gas stove, so I'm going to say no as well.
No.
Absolutely not.
There you go. Moving on,
Well, that
Emma
was our
Quinn.
first one. We did that, guys. That was pretty good.
Describe your personality in 3 words.
Again, starting to the left, and let's go right down the line.
Personality in 3 words. Committed, compassionate, and driven.
So my name is Carl, and my acronym is compassionate, analytical, receptive, and leader.
Oh, loving, caring, and funny.
I'm going to say giving, open, and friendly.
Giving, caring, and stern.
Funny, able to do anything, and very compassionate to other people listening all the time.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
What's the most daring thing that you've ever done?
I'd like to say running for city
This is
council.
Pete. This is a family audience, remember.
But I have a history of doing daring things and going to these communities where the biggest challenges are. So taking on challenges, community-based challenges that are difficult to solve.
I would say, looking for a lighthearted response, my brother-in-law, Tim Goyette, he's going to love this response. It's having a second kid.
Daring thing. There's been plenty, thank you. There's been plenty.
The day after I met my husband, I called my friends and said, I just met the guy I'm going to marry.
When I was in service, I went airborne. I jumped out of airplanes.
Moving away from Schenectady for the very first time and going to a place that I knew nobody and living in a hotel for 6 weeks until I could find an apartment.
Thank you. Mr. Waite?
What's your Halloween costume?
My Halloween costume, a priest.
Parent with enough sleep.
I just decided today, zombie.
I always wear the same T-shirt that's all about like reading books. This is my spooky reader T-shirt. But I do want to add a PSA that my Rotary Club is looking for used costumes to give out to students at Keene Elementary School who cannot afford costumes. So if anybody has costumes that their children have outgrown, bring them my way.
I'm always going to be me.
Probably what I always am is a chef, a cook. 'Cause I'm cooking for the Halloween party at St. Luke's Church, so I'll be in the kitchen with the apron and the gloves and the hat and the whole bit.
Thank you. We have time for another round of the lightning round. So, Doug?
Just a yes, no. Should people with marijuana convictions have been given first dibs on cannabis licenses?
No.
Can you repeat the question, Mr. Gowdy?
Sure. Should people that had marijuana convictions have been given first preference to get cannabis licenses in the state?
So my response would be, if you have successfully and completely served your conviction, then I think you should be able to afford those same liberties.
My answer would be no.
My answer would be no.
I encourage them to take horticulture, so I'd say yes.
No.
Thank you very much. Emma Quinn.
Taking a different route, what's your favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
So we didn't celebrate a lot of so I appreciate each day. So I definitely take these moments. Don't take these moments for granted. You don't know when tomorrow is not promised. So truly, every day should be a holiday, and a day above ground is something that you should truly cherish.
I can appreciate that with what I do, absolutely. Thanksgiving, to me, is just an outpouring of love, and everyone that we can help in the community. To me, it's always to give thanks. Thank you.
I love every single holiday, so it's hard for me to answer that question, but I think I'll start with Easter, and then I'll go to Halloween, and then Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Christmas.
If you could live anywhere but Schenectady, where would it be?
Costa Rica.
I truly love our community. It's diverse, and that's the reason why we actively moved back. I wish that the houses were more renovated, but we'll.
I do love my community as well, but I think I'd like to live in my mother's mountainous town of Pietrangala, Italy, just to experience the simpleness of life and fresh air and being. Thank you.
I've always said I wanted to live on the ocean. My husband often says, just wait a few years, and if we don't do something about climate change, we might actually be living on the ocean. Otherwise, Arles in France.
My father was from Jamaica. I've been there, and I enjoy living there. Being there. So if not Schenectady, Jamaica.
If not Schenectady, I would go to either Ireland or Poland, because that's where my family is from, both sides.
Final lightning round question from Andrew Waite.
You're at Mohawk Harbor and can do one thing. What do you do?
What do I do? Attend a concert.
I love people watching.
You can catch me every night, every Saturday night at the slots.
I guess I would go to Shaker and Vine and sample a glass of wine.
Just sit there and enjoy the view.
I'm usually at Druthers and sitting out or whatever and enjoying their food, and a good beer would be great.
Excellent. Thank you very much to the candidates for those great answers and the panelists for the fun questions. So we move to the final part now, and we're going to do the closing statements. We drew the names again earlier, and we have the order, and we're going to start out with Mr. Dobbs.
Yes, again, I am Jacob Dobbs. I lived here in Schenectady for the last 35 years. I'm from Brooklyn, but I wouldn't go back there to live. I enjoy living here in Schenectady, and I just want an opportunity to help to improve the quality of life for the people here in Schenectady. Thank you.
Number 2 is Mr. Mancini.
Yeah, I want to thank the Daily Gazette. I want to thank Schenectady Community College, fellow candidates, and everyone that's attended. I decided to run for city council. I have a love for this city, having served in this city pretty much my entire career. My family loves it here. And it's been a really challenging 3 years, I think, for everyone with COVID. I still think that we're adjusting. I don't know about it. This is a good time to change our leadership, but my heart and my mission has always been to serve the public. These last 3 years, I've learned a lot. I've lost both my parents, my brother, and my sister-in-law actually came from her wake to be here tonight. But it's my passion for making a difference, my passion for this community and the people that live in it. That's why I'm here. That's what I want to continue to do, to not get involved in the vitriol, to bring my best forward, to listen to folks, the residents, and do what's in their best interest. It's what I've always done, and it's what I want to continue to do, and I ask for your support.
Thanks, Mr. Mancini. Next is Ms. Hayes.
Again, my name is Stephanie Hayes. I was born and raised here in the city. I want to make the city the best that it can be and bring it back to what I remember as a child. Growing up here, it was a wonderful place to grow up, and I want other young families moving into this area to know the same thing, and that it's a great place to be here. I'm very active in the community all the time with St. Luke's Church, with the Hibernians, with doing other things. I do a lot of donations and a lot of cooking for other organizations and trying to help out. We just need to bring the city back to what it was, and in order to do that, we have to have common goals and common ground, and I think working with everybody on the city council and all the departments, we can do it. And I firmly believe that the city will be as the best that it can be, and we need that at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Mr. Williams?
Thank you. So before I begin, I'd like to thank the Daily Gazette and then also our hosting venue, SUNY Schenectady. President Muno, you're doing an exceptional job. That library looks nothing like it did when I was here. And also I'd like to thank the candidates for attending. Showing up matters, and I'll say it again, showing up matters. Voting is everyone's fundamental right and is not one that should be cast aside so easily. I stand before you confidently, looking to seek another 4 years in office. If I had a chance to talk to that Carl and try to get him to understand what this process would be, I don't know if I'd be able to conceptualize it. It is a challenge that I absolutely love. Is it fun all the times? I'll give you that answer in another 4 years. But truthfully, my wife and I moved back here with one goal, and that was to raise our kids in a community together. That was how I was brought up, not only in the black church, but also in our neighborhood. If I did anything wrong, it was not just my parent, it was the ones down the road who said, Carl, I know your mother. And I think that is the Schenectady that I've always cherished and held more dearly. I would just push back and say I don't think I would want to ever take anything back. I think that the path that Schenectady is on, it is bright, no pun intended. And I think it just requires a little more molding and making sure that everyone in our community feels that love and attention. But truly, to do this work, you have to be passionate and you have to be engaging. And I think having a collaborative council that's willing to enact that with progressive dialogue, I think is where you're going to notice the difference.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Ms. DeToro?
Thank you. I'd like to, again, thank the Schenectady Gazette, SUNY Schenectady, and the panelists, especially. You made it, the lightning round was really nice. You lightened up my whole evening. I'm proud to sit here this evening as a member of the Schenectady City Council. I take pride in knowing that over the past 2 years I have served with compassion and integrity and brought forth many initiatives that will impact our city for years to come. Schenectady is a powerful, vibrant, and electric city, a city that was down but has pulled itself up and whose future is dependent on the work we do. The positive changes that have taken place have happened because of folks like yourself, committed community members, and elected officials. I'm honored to play a role in this revitalization over the past 2 years as I sat on the City Council. I will continue my drive and passion and partner with my fellow council members in addressing public safety, reducing taxes, funding meaningful youth activities, and addressing the quality of life issues we all face here in Schenectady. Moving forward, I will continually strive to work to make sure that our city government is truly working to build a stronger community for all residents. I love helping our residents with issues they bring forward, aiding them with advice, concern, and support. Thank you for listening this evening, and I ask that you partner with me and vote for Doreen DeToro on November 7th so that I can continue to serve you for another 4 years.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Ms. Patrick?
I'd like to point out that I drew the 1 for the opening and the 6 for the closing, so I think I'm going to have to leave here and go play Powerball or something like that. But I am Carmel Patrick. I'd like to thank the Daily Gazette and SUNY Schenectady, as well as our panelists, for the opportunity to speak with you tonight and ask you to consider me for re-election to a second term on Schenectady City Council. Lots of folks have asked me why I want to run again for City Council, and my answer is the same as it was when I first ran. I know I bring value to my role, and there's lots left to do to help the residents that I pledge to support. The first question that I ask residents as I campaign throughout Schenectady's neighborhoods is, what can I do for you? What I hear again and again are the quality of life issues that folks deal with every day, and I work hard to help them solve those concerns. I believe that during my first term as a city councilwoman, I proved how much I care about the city and the people that live in it. They've learned who I am and what I stand for, and it's been clear that I represent all of them. I'm ready again to roll up my sleeves and work hard. I promised to do that in January of 2020, and I've kept that promise. Re-elect me to City Council this year, and I'll use the experience and knowledge that I gained during my first term to work even harder for you over my second term. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Patrick, and thanks again to all the candidates for really some excellent answers and a nice civil discourse conversation. We're going to take about a 15-minute break right now. So we're going to take about a 15-minute break, and then we'll have round two, which will be the mayoral debate with 3 candidates. We just have to move the set, so people need to take a break, they can, and we will be back shortly.
Check. Check. Check.
Hey, Rory Fluman. I don't know if we've ever really truly met.
Just know each other.
So,
Scary world of social media.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. So I thought I'd come up and
Yeah,
introduce
thanks for
myself.
coming. Thanks for you guys letting us use this great facility. I know you guys fund a lot of it too.
That's the president. The president
yep.
says you can come here. And
Oh,
you
it's
can come.
awesome.
So yeah.
Thanks for saying
Yeah.
hi.
Thanks for doing this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
you. Thank you. Oh.
Anything else?
Actually, get away from the mic.
A quick announcement, we're going to get started a little bit early, in about 4 or 5 minutes, if people want to take their seats. Everybody's ready in terms of the stream and the candidates, so we'll get moving pretty soon. Okay, good evening again, and we're back. So we're going to jump right into the second portion, and this is the debate for the Schenectady mayoral race. 3 candidates here who are going to be on the ballot, all will be joining us tonight. Just a quick reminder about the rules. All the candidates will have 90 seconds for their opening statements, and then we'll get into the questions, 60 seconds. And during the period, if there are any requests for rebuttals, they just need to signal that, and I will decide and let it be known pretty clearly if you've been granted. And then after the general questions, we're going to have a lightning round, which sounds like maybe we should just go lightning round the whole time, which was a great suggestion, but maybe we'll try that next time. So, and then we'll have closing statements, and then try to get everybody out on time. So without further ado, and this is based on the draw that we had ahead of time for the opening statements, number 1 and first will be Mr. Varno.
Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ed Varno. I am a retired Schenectady firefighter, proud father of 2, and proud grandfather of 2. The Varno family has spent decades serving the residents of Schenectady as firefighters. My father is a former chief, myself, and now my son following in our footsteps. Due to my experiences, I'm used to getting things done and fighting for Schenectady families. I keep my word. I do not make promises I cannot keep. I am honest and have integrity. As mayor, I want to invest in senior programming. I want to invest in more youth opportunities and activities. I support the enforcement of littering laws, noise ordinance, and speeding and traffic laws. I want abandoned properties addressed and maintained so they aren't neighborhood eyesores. I want to invest in workable streets. I want a government that empowers all residents. I have spent my lifetime working and protecting all residents of Schenectady. I continue that work today, working with high-risk youth and with seniors in Schenectady. As mayor, I will be responsive. I will fight to reduce the struggle that working families have for better paying jobs, for a better quality of life, for better accessibility for the disabled, and fight to provide access to ensure these goals are met. I look forward to bringing my message of an improved Schenectady for all to the people of our great city.
Thank you, Mr. Varno. Next up is Mayor McCarthy.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk about the historic changes that have taken place in Schenectady while I served as your mayor. The changes are visible and concrete. New waterfront development, which brought $54 million to Schenectady taxpayers and created over 1,000 jobs at Rivers Casino alone. New housing, more jobs, continued development downtown, and importantly in our neighborhoods. Today, $250 million in investment in affordable housing is transforming our neighborhoods. Schenectady has undergone a renaissance during my term as mayor. These extraordinary investments have led to 6 property tax cuts, crime is down, Schenectady is safer, and parks and housing are being invested in every neighborhood. I'm proud of my efforts to negotiate 2 sales tax agreements, resulting in over $5.3 million yearly increases in city revenue. City finances have been stabilized since I took office, and our bond rating has been upgraded. As your mayor, I've led the effort to establish a pro-environmental agenda, so Schenectady is leading the fight for climate change. These changes did not just happen. Vision, leadership, and competence made it happen. They happened because of partnerships with community organizations, Schenectady County, state and federal officials. They happened because of a renewed belief by business and property owners that our residents that we need to continue progress that we've begun. As your mayor, I will guarantee that Schenectady keeps moving forward. And if you re-elect me this year, I promise your Schenectady Renaissance will continue.
Thank you very much. And finally, Mr. Nelligan.
Good evening, everybody, and I'd like to start by thanking the Gazette and Schenectady Community College for sponsoring this debate. I want to thank my fellow candidates for being here tonight, and thanks to the panel for their upcoming questions. This race for mayor is one of the most important in decades because it really will demonstrate what kind of city we want to be. Gary is fond of saying he's running on his record, and I'm fond of saying I'm running on his record as well. Our city is now and has been for some time on the wrong track. No one disputes that downtown is better off than it was 30 years ago, but Gary doesn't deserve the credit for that. The booming downtown is because Republicans stepped up. Metroplex was formed by Republicans. Metroplex is responsible for downtown's development, and Republicans were involved with the siting at the casino downtown as well. It wasn't merely done by Gary McCarthy. Meanwhile, during the administration, there's been no focus on our neighborhoods, and big developers from out of town have profited off our backs, while hardworking taxpayers have suffered. We have broken infrastructure, broken schools, high crime, and high taxes. As we did in the 90s, Republicans are stepping up again through my campaign. As mayor, I'll invest in our neighborhoods, not in big donors and developers. I'll be a hands-on mayor who's visible, rides in the plow trucks and police cars, and is a cheerleader for this community. I'll fix our infrastructure, and I'll spend money wisely. We had $55 million last year from the federal government. We could have built sidewalks, roads, invested in our community and police. Instead, we have a $10 million pool that cost twice its estimate. I'm asking for your vote because I can do better, and together we will do better.
Thank you, Mr. Nelligan. We'll jump right into the questions with Emma Quinn of CBS 6.
All right, good morning, good evening. The state is offering incentives in communities committed to building more housing. Is this something you would or are trying to tap into those funds?
To start with Mr. McCarthy.
Yes, some of those details haven't been published yet, the regulations, but we have, again, major investments in our neighborhoods in affordable housing. It's $250 million. Yates Village has been transformed with Northside Village. So we're looking forward to working with the state in that continued relationship to bring money here to leverage local resources so that we can, in fact, add to our housing stock and continue to rebuild our neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mr. Varno.
Yes. For the first time in our history, we have more renters than property owners, changing the dynamic of the city. We have plenty of apartments. What we need is more home ownership. Instead of bowing down to big developers for apartment complexes where they make millions in grants from the state and Metroplex, there is money available to create small owner-occupied homes. We should take city-owned property and consolidate it and build small, roughly 1,000 to 1,200 square foot homes that people can buy. There are state grants available for this. By building these, we can provide people the opportunity to purchase homes, safe, affordable housing that will allow people to build equity and wealth, getting families out of the poverty trap. Single-family homes will create pride for people, pride in their neighborhood, pride in this city.
Thank you, Mr. Varno. Next up is Mr. Nelligan.
Absolutely. First of all, I served for 15 years in the state Senate. I was chief of staff to 3 different members from 3 different parts of the state. I know state incentives well. I know federal incentives well. So absolutely, we should take advantage of affordable housing incentives that come from the state. But I also agree with Mr. Varno. We need to make more homeowners here in the city of Schenectady. How are we actually going to do that? I've got an affordable housing plan that mixes several things. First, it says to the developers, if you're going to come and develop in Schenectady and get a giant tax incentive, we are going to force you to build affordable housing in the city of Schenectady. You don't get to come here and make money off our backs and not build real affordable housing. $2,000 lofts are not what I call affordable housing. So I would change the whole dynamic that we're operating under when it comes to affordable housing in the city of Schenectady. I would hold developers' feet to the fire, and I'd be working for the common man, the common working person, and not the big developers and donors.
Thanks, Mr. Nelligan. Next question comes from Times Union reporter Paul Nelson.
Schenectady was particularly hard hit by drug-related overdose deaths across the city over the past few months. For example, in July alone, 8 people died in a matter of days, 4 of them in one day alone. In late August, the next month, there were 9 drug overdose deaths in 5 days. I realize, obviously, there's no easy answer, but what are your ideas to hopefully prevent a repeat of this in the future?
First up is Mr. Varno.
Well, I think we need to stem the flow of these drugs into our city and work on helping the people out that are the abusers and users. And that's...
Thank you very much, Mr. Varno. Mr. Nelligan?
Yeah, so I would agree that we first need to stem the flow of drugs into our community. How do we do that? We do that by taking a look at what the federal policy is currently failing us under the Democratic administration in Albany and in D.C., which is on the migrant situation and allowing so much to cross our border without being interdicted by federal forces. And we've got to take a look at that first. Secondly, once we've done that, we absolutely need even more access to naloxone, even more access to treatment. We've got to have, I proposed as a part of my public safety plan, putting social workers on the street alongside police that will go into the community, help with mental health and addiction issues, bring people to the right programs. We need even greater partnerships with our federal and state representatives to get the money to be able to treat these folks. And let's make no mistake, the idea that over 4th of July weekend, a half dozen people died of overdoses in our community is a blight on the record of the administration. And as mayor, I would fight much harder to make sure that that doesn't happen ever again.
Thanks, Mr. Nelligan. And the final answer on this question is Mayor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Tragic situations. We have been very aggressive in forming what's a hub model. So we take teams now and deploy them for its police, fire, paramedics, healthcare workers, housing counselors to try and bring stability into individuals' lives and create a pathway for options for drug treatment. There's been extensive follow-up in terms of investigative review on these cases, and there has not been a clear point of one source of these drugs coming in. And one of my opponents articulates federal intervention and other ways of dealing with it. The source of these drugs is becoming much more decentralized now, where you had heroin and cocaine. There were one point that you could follow them coming from country through the borders.
Thank you,
Today,
Mr.
some of these
Mayor.
can be produced any place, and it
Thank
makes
you
it
very
much
much.
harder to deal with.
Next question is from Daily Gazette columnist Andrew Waite, and first up will be Mr. Nelligan for the answer.
Schools are central to the community. Superintendent Annabelle Soler is a pretty bold guy. You've been pretty supportive of a lot of his policies, Mayor, and Matt, you've been a pretty strong critic. Just wondering if you can explain those positions. And Mr.
Sure.
Varno.
I mean, let's start with this. Results matter. Our schools are failing by any measure. When you have not one 8th grade student who could pass a math test given by the state of New York last year, if you think the schools aren't failing, then I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. The schools are failing. And the superintendent is the leader of those schools. So like anybody else, whether it's the mayor of a city or the superintendent of a school district or the president of the United States, the leadership is held accountable when there's failure in the school. I know Annabelle Soler. I knew him from Rochester. He was the principal of East High School, another failing school, by the way, that he was then let go from. We brought in a better model. RIT and the U of R came in and formed a consortium to run that school better. They had discernible better results after a few years of running that program at the East High. I would like a similar type of thing to happen here in Schenectady. I think we should partner with Union College and SUNY Albany and SUNY Schenectady to redesign and reform our schools. What we can't do is accept what we're seeing now, because this kind of failure is not only not good enough, we're cutting off a whole generation of kids from success. That's unacceptable.
Thanks, Mr. Nelligan. Next up is Mayor McCarthy.
Mr. Nelligan left his teaching career under, at best, cloudy circumstances in Guilderland. We have to work together. Our partnership with the school district, with county, with state government, it's worked in economic development, and we have to translate that into the relationship with the school district to provide stability, to provide opportunity, to provide career paths for the individuals that are within the school, and provide support to kids that are coming out of households that are more challenged. Excuse me, the city school district has more course offerings than most of the suburban districts. So we have the resources here, and it's how do you match those students up with the appropriate resources and outline opportunities for them so that they're successful. And yes, the record hasn't been that impressive. It's not the direct responsibility of the mayor. It's working with that school board and making changes that produce real results.
Thank you very much. Request for a rebuttal from Mr. Nelligan. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think the mayor should be careful talking about cloudy circumstances given his own record. This is somebody who chased a young girl down the street when he had a questionable amount of alcohol in his blood. So what we ought to do is, if we're going to start talking about questionable circumstances, let's talk about questionable circumstances. In the meantime, when it comes to the schools, there's no doubt that these statistics are correct. And the statistics show that this school is failing, and the way we're going to get this school back on track is by holding people accountable, and we don't get it by giving a free pass to the superintendent.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder to the candidates, when we do rebuttals especially, stay on point. Thank you. Next up, Mr. Varno.
Yes, I understand our schools are having problems. I think as a community as a whole, we have to work together to better this. It's just not the school district, it's all of us that need to help and work with the children of this city to make them better and make them better students.
Thank you, Mr. Varno. Next question is from Doug Gowdy, WGY.
I'll follow up on the schools because I think it's important. Since I've moved to this area, I've bragged to everybody about Schenectady. I think this is a great city. It has a lot to offer, but that zero passing 8th grade math stat is mind-boggling to me. When my colleagues wrote it, I read that and I kept thinking it was a typo. That cannot be. One of the solutions we've heard kicked around is that maybe we change the way we grade tests. Another, the state says, maybe we do away with Regents exams or we don't release results of those. Are any of you in favor of not releasing test results or not testing the children as a way to deal with this stat?
We start with Mayor McCarthy.
No, I think the data should be released. And in defense of the school district, and I don't have the details, that number came out zero because a group of students took another test or were in a different category. So that statistic is really a deviant number from what the reality is within the district. And have to go back to the school district to get actual detailed explanation on that.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Varno.
Yes. The school district, the schools, I believe, need to be helped out. Again, like I said, the marks are undeniable. They're just terrible. I think the teachers, I don't know about the marking system. I can't talk about that. But whether it's an A or B or some other type of marking system, what is the difference if the children are still failing these exams? We need to help them.
Thank you, Mr. Varno. Next up, Mr. Nelligan.
So the first thing is this. They might be using the mayor's math in the school because he says zero is not a zero. A zero is a zero, Mayor. 0% of people pass that test. And I don't think we should make excuses for failure. I'm not going to do that as mayor. I don't think you should do it. When it comes to the marking system, I believe students and teachers know best how that we should be dealing with classrooms. When I was a teacher, I marked my students. I handed out a syllabus. I had a clear marking system. I had a clear rubric for grading essays and grading tests. That was known by parents. It was known by students. And it was equitable because it treated every single student the same way. That's how we should grade kids. It should be about teachers and classrooms and localities, not impose solutions from school board to the state of New York. And I would not support that. And I certainly don't support giving people a free pass on not coming to class like this grading system does. I don't support giving people 20 times to take a test over to finally pass it. I don't believe in letting people hand in assignments weeks late and still get full credit. This is all holding kids not accountable at all, and we need kids to be more accountable and not less.
Thank you, Mr. Nelligan. Next up, next question is from Emma Quinn, CBS 6, and the first response is from Mr. Varno.
Data obtained from the Schenectady Police Department this week shows there's been a decrease in homicides and shots fired incidents from 2022 to 2023, or decrease from 23 to less in 2023 than 2022, excuse me. What public safety investments should be made to keep these downward trends? What is or isn't working?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Emma, if you could repeat that, please.
Yes. Data obtained from the Schenectady Police Department shows there's a decrease in homicides and shots fired incidents from last year to this year, so less in 2023 than 2022. What public safety investments should be made to keep these downward trends? What is or is not working?
Well, to be honest, I believe both my opponents are out of touch with reality when it comes to crime in the city. It is said that crime is down. The problem doesn't match reality. Many people don't report crimes. A bad planning for replacement hires from retirement. Mr. Nelligan's approach to hire 50 officers in one financial fantasy, not financial reality. How could we possibly afford that? I would work with the police department to create a sustainable plan to try to figure out the staffing needs for 2 years in advance so we can constantly be hiring new officers to maintain a full staff of 165. The police department was not properly funded in the past years for new hires. To say the police budget is up is only a half-truth. It's increased because of contractual obligations. The city council defunded the police, and the budget was not vetoed, which I would have done.
Thank you, Mr. Varno. Thank you very much. Next up, Mr. Nelligan.
I'll second that. It was a defund the police budget. The mayor's own chief of police condemned that budget, said it was cutting police overtime at a time we could least afford it. When it comes to crime being down, that's news to me. I know in 2022, where you have a full year of statistics, crime was up 28%, murders were up 66%. I go to doors every day. People don't tell me about reduced crime. They tell me about more crime. They tell me about noise complaints. They tell me about speeding. They tell me about people doing drugs in their alleyways. They tell me about auto theft. They tell me about all kinds of quality of life crimes that the police don't have time to get to. They don't have time because they have so many priority 1 crimes to get to, they can't get to the priority 3 crimes. That's why the staffing isn't proper at the police department. Now, what can we do it in 1 year? We should be able to do it over 4 years. We could have done it quicker if the mayor didn't give us a $7.2 million out-year deficit in 2025 in his recent budget. We could have done it a lot faster. We could have done it a lot faster if he spent ARPA funding properly and spent it on police instead of spending it on pet projects like that pool. So we have to make decisions fiscally that are responsible.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll do that.
Nelligan. Thank you very much. And final answer comes from Mayor McCarthy.
Again, those numbers are down because of the follow-up we're doing. We're using the camera system to create a level of documentation and deterrence. Every shots fired call is followed up on in detail. There are arrests that are made, and it is showing results, and it's creating stability in the neighborhoods and, again, a level of deterrence so people choose not to commit the crimes to begin with.
Thank you very much. Next question from Paul Nelson.
So I'd like to continue the conversation relative to the ARPA funding because the mayor last week unveiled his budget on Friday, and it appears that the city soon could be facing a $7.4 million budget gap because that ARPA funding won't be available in 2025 to cover the salaries. And I don't like to play the blame game, but how did this happen? I guess who's to blame, and what measures can be put into place to avert or at least soften the potential blow to taxpayers of what appears to be a fiscal cliff?
First up is Mr. Nelligan.
To start with, the blame is easy. It's the mayor. The mayor makes the budget, and the city council passes the budget. So the blame is pretty simple. He took all the ARPA money and spent it like a drunken sailor instead of putting it into out-year investments in infrastructure. That's what happened. So if you start to look at it from that perspective, the blame is easy. The question is the fix. The fix is far harder than the blame. How do we fix a $7.24 million deficit in the out year? I believe we have to start with a forensic audit of all city accounts. I'm not convinced I know where every dollar is in that budget. I'm not convinced I know where every body is buried, but I'm going to find out as soon as I become mayor of the city. I'm going to pay the bills first. We're not going to fiscally default. We're not going to lower our bond rating. So if certain things have to be put off, like even my police program, it's going to be put off because we have to first pay the bills. We have to first take care of the residents. We have to first make sure that taxes do not go up. And that's the other thing. This budget also includes 840% fee increases on residents. That's a lot of money for residents to pay. So not only do we have a deficit, we have 840% fee increases. We've got a long way to go to get fiscally stable again. It's because he wasn't thinking ahead. He was thinking about this election.
Thanks, Mr. Nelligan. Next up, Mayor McCarthy.
Again, the outline for the budget deals with the realities of ARPA, which is Mr. Nelligan thinks he controls everything. You still have to negotiate with the city council. The city council has the final determination in terms of the adoption of the budget and the allocation of those ARPA funds. The $7 million that's outlined there because of the lack of ARPA funds represents a little over 6% of the total operating budget. So you think $7 million, it's a big chunk of change. But it's not an unrealistic or impossible task to deal with. I'm setting out a clear picture for the future where we're going to have to deal with that. We're looking at the homes program. How do we take more houses in? We had a period where we couldn't do the foreclosures because of the COVID pandemic. We're now bringing those in. We're getting the homes program back up where we're selling those houses. We're creating home ownership opportunities, and we're building real value in the neighborhoods.
Thank you very much. Next up is Mr. Varno, 60 seconds.
I will do what is necessary to keep taxes in check. Right now, the city is looking at a $7+ million deficit for after next year. Some of this deficit could have been avoided if the city used ARPA funds appropriately. If I was mayor, I would have vetoed those allocations, insisting the money be spent on city infrastructure and capital projects, providing an indirect tax cut to residents. I would also have vetoed last year's budget as it was unrealistic, putting us in bad shape for the coming years. There are places to cut, particularly the city clerk's office, which has underperformed according to the data. Furthermore, the sales tax agreement is bad, favoring the county too much. County taxes for city residents have gone up. It's time for them to give us a tax cut from their enormous reserves. It's time for them to stop using our tax money for their own political gain.
Thanks, Mr. Varno. Next question comes from Andrew Waite.
Mayor and Matt, you've each dealt with some troubling behavior under your leadership. Mayor, just talking about the solid waste director buying cocaine while on the job. Matt, you've had some candidates that you've introduced that have presented some troubling ideology. What's your level of responsibility when this kind of thing happens, and what can you do to prevent or to lessen the chance that such behavior happens?
First up is Mayor McCarthy.
Again, we've acted in a decisive manner and taken appropriate action, whether it's internal discipline. There's just under 600 employees in the city of Schenectady. Terminated people when it's appropriate. We counsel them when it's appropriate. And hopefully we're setting standards of higher performance so that it justifies the investment that the taxpayers make in their salaries and benefits.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Varno, 60 seconds.
Yes, I believe that the mayor has handled a couple of the incidents in good form. I think we need to do more at talking to our employees and working with them to come up with ideas of how to better run this city.
Thanks, Mr. Varno. And finally on this question, Mr. Nelligan.
It was just reported today in Paul's column that Paul LaFawn still can't pass the civil service test, and he still got his position. I think that's an example of the mayor not holding people accountable for not even being able to pass a test. The second thing I would say is when it comes to the people on the ticket, of course I have some responsibility for that, and I've owned up to that responsibility. I've said those people should back away. When it comes to the most recent controversy, again, that Mr. Waite wrote a column about, I would just say, when I have more time later, I'd like to read a letter from some folks that didn't get published in your paper about my support for LGBTQ rights and transgender folks. And I think at the end of the day that speaks a lot more, my family and the way I live my life speaks a lot more to who I am as a person than whether or not someone's on a ticket. And I think that's just more gotcha politics from the Gazette. I don't agree with it, and I think we really want to be focused on holding people accountable. I'm willing to be held accountable, and that's why I'm running for mayor.
Thank you very much. I just want to make a quick editorial note. The letter to the editor in question that you raised is in tomorrow's paper. It will run tomorrow. So just to clarify that fact.
Good to hear. Thank you.
I have the mic too, so. So moving next to Doug Gowdy with a question, and Mr. Varno is first up on this one.
First, Mayor, do you want to respond to the article today about the civil service exam, and what would be your explanation to the people if he continues to fail that?
Well, there's rules under civil service that are imposed by the state. I thought somebody worked in the state legislature and was in charge of making all these laws. Mr. LaFawn served for over a decade, and then where we thought the position was exempt, meaning it serves at the mayor's pleasure, it's my appointment, was told by the Civil Service Commission that he had to take a civil service test. So he has taken the test. There was not a qualified list established. He did not pass that, but I've reappointed him. He continues to serve in that position and continues to do a great job for the residents of this city.
Thank you very much. Mr. Varno?
What's that?
Mr. Varno.
Oh, okay. I kind of agree with the mayor as far as Mr. LaFawn. I've had many dealings with him. I've been involved with restoring the old Bellevue Little League Park into a safe place for children to come and enjoy themselves without having to worry about problems. And he has been nothing but a help to us up there.
Thank you, Mark, very much. Next up, Mr. Nelligan.
I don't think it's about Mr. LaFawn. I think it's about what we do if people can't pass the civil service test. Just because the mayor wasn't aware of civil service rules doesn't mean they don't exist. They exist. He should enforce them. I've never heard of that test. I never saw any advertising for that test. I think there's other qualified people who could take that test. If something is a civil service position, it should be treated as a civil service position, not as some sort of a mayoral hire. At that point, you got to take the civil service test. You got to pass it. He did not pass the test, as was pointed out today. It's not the first time he didn't pass the test. I think we should have a person that runs a department that can actually pass a civil service test. I think that's kind of a low standard. I would enforce that standard if I was mayor. I think at the end of the day, we can't keep giving people passes for bad behavior just because we like them, which is what this mayor tends to do. As mayor, I'm going to have a zero tolerance policy for things like this. And if it was me, I would move on from Mr. LaFawn, find another qualified individual that can pass a civil service test, and that's how we would move forward.
Thanks, Mr. Nelligan. Back to
I
Emma
just
Quinn.
want to say that's incorrect. That was the
Oh,
first
sorry,
time
sorry.
he had failed the test. It was the first time he'd failed the test. It was represented that he failed it twice. It is not, and that we were told by civil service that it was an exempt position, was not subject to a test. And then after been there almost a decade, they put in a testing rule. Just doesn't make sense to me. You have somebody in place for a decade, and then all of a sudden you want to say you're going to test them.
Thank you very much. Unless there's another request for rebuttal, we're going to go to the next question then. So,
Just one quick follow-up, if I could.
Sure, Paul.
Mr. Mayor, will Paul LaFawn be taking the test again if it's offered or when it's offered?
Yes.
thank you very much. Any other follow-ups from the panel?
Well, does it matter if he passes it again? I mean, if you don't care if he passes it, why have him take it again?
Because it's civil service requirement. So if in fact they offered a test and there was a qualified list of 3 or more candidates, I would have to pick from the top 3. Where there's not a valid list, you can either, if somebody's passed the test, you can appoint them, or in this case, he was eligible to be reappointed and continue to serve the residents of this city.
Thank you very much. Emma Quinn.
Back during the primary mayoral debate, Paul had asked a question to candidates. They were asked about the infighting within city council and how they would manage conflict. How, as mayor, would each of you manage disagreements or conflict within city council?
First up is Mr. Varno.
As mayor, I would lead the council and get them to stop their infighting. It does no one any good. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and there are 5 on the city council just unwilling to compromise, pushing individual agendas, not looking out for the residents. As mayor, I would bring them into a room and lead. And if they couldn't get their act together, would take it straight to the people, and they would be replaced.
Thanks, Mr. Varno. Next up, Mr. Nelligan, 60 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no question that the fighting on the council has been an embarrassment. We've got to do better than that. I think the mayor has continually separated himself and said, I'm not part of the council, so therefore it's not my fault that the city council can't get along. The problem is they're accomplishing nothing for the people. It's not about whether or not they fight, it's about whether or not they're getting anything done. They're currently getting very little done because they're so busy fighting, and also what's really embarrassing is the racial overtones to the infighting as well. In a city that's this diverse, a community that's this diverse, a community that's got this much, different kinds of folks in it, we shouldn't have a council that's fighting about those kind of issues and opening up sort of gashes in people's belief system in the, sort of in the city. So I think that's really bad. We shouldn't be doing that. I think at the end of the day, we should be leading. And how do we lead? We bring them in a room, we try to get them to do the right thing. If they don't, as somebody from the party opposite, I would have press conferences daily to call them out because the people deserve action from the council. We pay taxes. We deserve to get things done. Currently, things are not getting done, and the infighting is an embarrassment.
Thanks, Mr. Nelligan. And finally, Mr. Mayor McCarthy, 60 seconds.
Mr. Nelligan talks about doing press conferences daily. He's looking for headlines. He's not looking for results. The reality is that 98% of the legislation going through passes unanimously. Yes, there is some posturing. I believe it's more personality than based on policy. We generally agree on the overall objectives of the city. You look at the things that are happening within the community, the investments that are being made, the businesses that we're attracting. It's a record that we can all be proud of.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, back to Paul Nelson.
So I'd like to circle back to the mayor's proposed budget and just kind of zoom in on the proposed trash collection fee. So I kind of took a cursory look and kind of reviewed some of the numbers, and it appears to me that the garbage collection fund is running a roughly $3.5 million surplus. So how do you justify raising fees at a time when many Schenectadians are struggling to make ends meet?
First up is Mr. Nelligan.
You can't. And so we shouldn't be raising fees at this time. There is a surplus in the account. I agree with you, Paul. I don't think there's any need to raise fees on any of these items this year. But I am still concerned. We have to be careful. We have to be careful because the 2025 fiscal cliff that the mayor has brought us to, that we're going to have to be careful to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a bad fiscal position. I do not support the fee increases. Fee increases are regressive taxes on poor people. People that don't have the money. They're not progressive taxes like an income tax. This is where everybody gets charged similar fees, even whether they can afford to pay for it or not. I'm against regressive taxation. I think this really is regressive taxation in one of its worst forms. I oppose it. And one last thing I would just like to add is this. The reason I would like to hold press conferences is because the way we get change is rallying the people to your cause. The only way you rally the people to your cause is to get the press involved. So I would have daily press conferences because I'd be somebody who'd want to rally the people for change. I think the mayor's happy with the status quo. If you believe the status quo is good, you should vote for him.
Thanks, Mr. Nelligan. Next up is Mayor McCarthy.
I wish you were doing all my budget work. I think you're leaving out fringe benefits. The fringe rate on a city employee today is about 71%. The fund is actually running a deficit of a little over $1 million. And so that's what I'm looking to do, is adjust the fee so that it actually covers our expenses for employee, the salary, the benefits, our disposal cost, and then the maintenance of equipment.
So you're saying that the trash collection fund is running a deficit?
Yes.
Because, I mean, just looking at the numbers, if I did them correctly, $8.2 million in revenue, and then the operating cost was $4.6 million. And then, obviously, you know, it's $3.6 million is what I'm calling the surplus, but you're saying that
But
those
you're not
numbers are off?
taking into account fringe benefits or the capital costs for the garbage truck. Some of those are $400,000, $500,000 apiece.
Okay, so what is the deficit?
We're running about $1 million deficit.
Thank you, Mayor McCarthy. Next up and finally on this question is Mr. Varno, 60 seconds.
For garbage collection, it is more costly to recycle than regular municipal waste. That doesn't mean we shouldn't recycle. Rather, I would look to make the city a zero-waste city, whereby managing the materials and product design are examined and standardized to reduce the fiscal burden of waste and encourage industry to embrace environmental responsibility through purchasing and economic development incentives. Water and sewage fee increases might have been completely avoided if ARPA funds had been used properly for city infrastructure and development rather than lining the pockets of friends of the city council. As mayor, I would have vetoed that and used that for these areas, in essence, giving residents an indirect tax cut.
Thank you, Mr. Varno. Next question from Andrew Waite.
Climate disasters are on the rise. Say there's an epic flood of the Mohawk. What's your course of action?
First up, Mayor McCarthy.
I dealt with an epic flood of the Mohawk during Irene and Lee, and that's one of the reasons that we have spent money rebuilding the pump station on North Ferry Street. We converted that from a gravity feed from Front Street to the wastewater treatment facility on Anthony Street, put a forced main in so that we have resiliency there to handle those high water events. And we've done other improvements throughout both the water and sewer system, again, to make sure that we're sustainable, that we're efficient in it, and that we can use it to attract businesses and residents back to this community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Varno.
Well, could I have the question again?
Climate disasters are on the rise. What would you do?
I think the river needs to be worked on further upstream to stop the blockage in the city where it blocks in floods, causes the floods. And I think within the state and the federal government should be in here helping us with these problems. I know as a former firefighter, I've been down there many times for floods and assisting people out of their homes into safety.
Thank you, Mr. Varno. And final answer from Mr. Nelligan.
Yeah, I think that after Irene and Lee, the city actually did a pretty good job on hardening infrastructure, working with DEC, working with the Army Corps of Engineers and others to make sure that we're doing what we can to make sure those riverbanks are safe for people. I think the other thing that probably the mayor and I agree on, believe it or not, is on climate change more generally. I think we both believe it's a crisis. It's something we need to address. There's been significant work done on climate change in the city. I think we could do more. I always think we could do more. We could look ahead. I think we should have a community choice aggregation program in the city that allows people to vote to aggregate more renewable energy to their personal bills, even if they want to pay more money voluntarily for those bills. I think we should be doing as much as we can to install more solar, more geothermal heat pumps, take advantage of every single state incentive we can to do so. But generally, I think that this is an area of agreement and something that we ought to be doing. We ought to continue down this road, and we ought to double down on it as best we can.
Thank you, Mr. Nelligan. Doug Gowdy?
Shift gears, go a little positive here. Dave Portnoy, the Barstool president, recently did a series of pizza reviews that were watched by millions of people. His first pizza review started with his expressing his shock at how cool J Street is. He didn't know, and he couldn't stop singing its praises. With that said, leave J Street out. Tell Mr. Portnoy about another cool thing about Schenectady the next time he's back.
Mr. Varno, you're first.
Another cool thing about Schenectady. I've lived here my entire life, and I believe this whole city is cool. I believe the residents of this city are what make it cool. I've seen the good times and the bad, and I just believe that it's the people of this city and the city itself.
Thanks, Mr. Varno. Next up, Mr. Nelligan.
Yeah, well, I first of all, I love watching Dave. I loved his review of Marino's in particular, a great place for pizza in the city. I would say that the people, I think he should get to the neighborhoods and talk to people. I think one of the things that the mayor and I have both done in this campaign is go to doors and talk to the citizens of the city. We spent a lot of time in conversation about how we can make the city better. I'd love to take Dave Portnoy to doors with me so he can meet the people of this great city. In the first debate with Ms. Porterfield, it was asked, what is one of the great resources of the city? The best resource of the city is the people of the city. I have been so impressed and so welcomed by people as I've been campaigning this time around. I've been so happy to be able to work with you. And I'd love to bring Dave in. Maybe we can bring a pizza to some people. We'll order some pizza for the community. We'll go to the doors and let them test it. They can be on Dave's podcast. That'd be my suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Nelligan. And finally, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. J Street, of course, is great. The big thing is to get people into Schenectady who haven't been here in a while. It's been transformational. There's a lot of good things going on. Tonight, just before coming here, I had the opportunity to present the key to the city to Schenectady Hardware and Electric. Their 100th anniversary is this year. They're doing a big celebration at Frog Alley. A great venue. If people haven't been there, go over and see it. They're still there tonight. If you have trouble getting in, tell them I sent you. The party's going to go late.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. All right, we're going to jump into a couple of rounds in the lightning round. So let's start with Emma Quinn, and we're going to do what we did last time. We want to move these along quickly, so let's go from left to right. Quick answers, and you're up, Emma.
Describe your personality in 3 words.
Mayor McCarthy.
Stoic with a sense of humor.
Mr. Varno.
Honesty, integrity, and a fair sense of humor.
I describe myself as passionate, caring, and putting family first.
Thank you very much. Paul Nelson.
Who would you want to play you in a movie of your life?
Oh. I'd probably ask Paul Nelson from the Times Union.
We look so much alike, Mayor.
Okay. Unless somebody has a rebuttal, it's Mr. Varno's turn.
Let me think about this.
Andrew Wade.
Patrick Swayze.
All right. We're definitely going right to the lightning round next year, just the whole thing.
If he was alive, I'd say John Wayne.
Name one thing you like about another candidate on this stage.
Commitment. To run for mayor, it takes a lot of time and effort. So I'm thankful that people are here. We have this forum, and that's too many words for the answer, but commitment is important.
Mr. Varno?
I believe the same thing. I think the three of us up here put up a good battle together, and we all deserve the chance.
Thank you. And finally, Matt?
I'd say that I can't speak for Mr. Varno, but I think I might be a little. I think I admire the mayor's hair. I wish I had some of that, and if I did, who knows? So I admire the mayor's. He's got a great head of hair.
Let's see what Mr. Gowdy has for us.
I don't know if you know this about me, I'm a foodie. We got Wing Walk coming up this weekend. What's your go-to flavor of wing?
Basic barbecue.
Barbecue.
I like hot buffalo wings.
Thank you. Emma?
Sticking with the food category here, what's your favorite fruit and why?
Say that again.
Your favorite fruit.
Pineapple.
Apples.
I gotta go with Mr. Varno. Apples, especially this time of year in upstate New York, no place better to get a great apple.
Thank you. Paul Nelson?
What would you change about yourself? You can't say nothing.
Being able to talk more and be more engaging with people. Again, I'm a little bit stoic and less than warm sometimes, or people perceive that.
Mr. Varno?
Could I have the question again? I'm sorry.
What would you change about yourself? And you can't say nothing.
What would I change about myself? Nothing.
It's hard to follow that. I think if I could change one thing, I'd lose 100 pounds.
Thank you to the candidates.
New Schenectady or Electric City?
The new Schenectady.
The Electric City.
Electric City.
Thank you.
Garnet Chargers or Dutchman?
The new Schenectady, it's Garnet Chargers.
The Dutchman.
Dutchman.
Thank you. We have time for another round here, so Emma Quinn?
What qualities are needed in an effective leader?
Ability to listen.
Mr. Varno?
I didn't hear. I
What-
can't hear you.
That's sorry. What qualities are needed in an effective leader?
I think it's someone who is honest, trustworthy, willing to stand up for the fight.
Thank you very much.
I believe it's somebody who's action-oriented.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
If money was not an object, what would you spend most of your days doing?
Paving streets and filling potholes.
You're kidding, right?
I would like to, if money wasn't an option, I'd like to spend my total time with my family, my children, my grandchildren, my wife.
Thank you.
I'd like to attend a whole lot more heavy metal concerts around the world.
Is there a Proctor's production this season that you're most excited about?
Oh, that'll get me in trouble if I pick one and don't go with the other. So I would tell people to buy the Key Bank series and go to all of them.
The Arlo Guthrie story.
That's a good question. I think for me, let me, for the second time tonight, agree with the mayor. I think you got to buy the key bag series. That's correct.
Just a point of order, if McCarthy wins Powerball, I do not want to party with him filling potholes. That's the craziest thing I ever heard. My God. Get yourself a beverage, man, and some wings. Let's go. Halloween's fast approaching. Do you believe that ghosts are real?
For all the kids that are out there watching this, yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I watch Ghost Hunters. They're real.
Thank you very much. So we're done with the question portion here, and we're going to move to the closings. So based on the earlier drawing, we picked in the order that Mayor McCarthy is going to go first, Mr. Varno is second, and Mr. Nelligan is last. So Mayor McCarthy, when you are ready, you can give your final closing statement.
Thank you. I appreciate the Daily Gazette and SUNY Schenectady for hosting tonight's event, and I appreciate everyone for taking the time to join us. Schenectady is undergoing a true renaissance. We've cut taxes, we have an extraordinary level of investment, unprecedented job growth. Look at Proctor's, Mohawk Harbor, downtown, and as I said earlier, $250 million investment in affordable housing. The thousands of building permits pulled each year by individuals investing in their homes and businesses. It's an impressive record. Some try to put a negative spin on our success and divide the community. I'm truly honored to be serving as mayor of this great city, but I know the job is not done. There are opportunities to build on our past successes. There are problems to solve and improvements to be made. I submit to you tonight that I'm in the best position to continue to move our city forward. I have a clear and impressive record, a team that works together, that produces real results. I ask for your support tonight for the opportunity to continue to serve as your mayor, and I pledge that our future will be bright and that one that we'll all be proud of. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Varno?
I would like to thank the Gazette and the Community College for this opportunity to bring my message for an improved Schenectady to the residents of our city. I would also like to thank the residents who have been so receptive to my candidacy. As you saw tonight, I care more about this city and its residents than anyone else on this stage. I will not put the interests of big developers first. I will not be a narcissist with unrealistic policies, desperate for votes. I will always put you, the residents of Schenectady, first. In the next few years, residents will be facing severe increases or service cuts due to bad budgeting and extreme misuse of ARPA funds by the City Council and the Mayor. My other opponent has no realistic policy recommendations either. Instead, bombastic proclamations that will put the city millions of dollars more in debt. I will fight to keep property taxes in check, bringing forth policies that will increase revenue in this city. I will fill my administration with the best minds, regardless of party affiliation, to ensure we are working for you from day one. I will always be responsive to your communications. Our city is on fire, high taxes and crime. I have always run into fires, and now I want to do the same for our city. I am the only valid alternative to the mayor. I ask for your support so together we can work together to save our city and have a prosperous Schenectady for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Varno. And finally, Mr. Nelligan.
Again, I want to thank the Gazette. I want to thank our fellow candidates for participating. I want to thank Schenectady Community College. I want to thank the panel and all those that came today. Basically, my message is simple. Gary's had 12 years to fix the problems that we've talked about tonight. He has not fixed them. Throughout the last hour, you've heard about my vision for the city. But let me reiterate a few key points. When I'm mayor, I'll spend my first 100 days getting things done for the people, not the powerful. I'll pass my sidewalk program to take the burden off of taxpayers. I'll adopt a law to fight aggressive panhandling. I'll take steps to hold developers accountable and work to build affordable housing. I'll pass comprehensive ethics legislation to hold public officials accountable. I'll propose term limits for all elected officials. I'll complete a forensic audit in City Hall. And I will begin the process of increasing investments in our police department to fight crime. My focus will be on you, your family, and the neighborhoods you live in. I will wake up every day thinking about how I can make this city better, and I won't stop working until we save this city. I need your vote this November to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nelligan. And thanks again also to the panel, again, the candidates, everybody at SUNY Schenectady, Open Stage Media, And the audience, thanks for coming. And don't forget to vote on November 7th, and have a good night.